My name is Betsy, and I'm 27 years old. I guess you could say I've been pretty lucky in life, at least that's what everyone always told me. I graduated from Stanford with a computer science degree, and right after college, I started my own company. We developed mobile apps, and honestly, the money started rolling in faster than I ever expected. I lived with my parents growing up, Mom, Dad, and Amber, who's 3 years younger than me. We had what looked like a perfect family from the outside. Dad worked in insurance, Mom was a teacher, and we lived in this nice suburban house with a white picket fence. The whole American dream thing, you know? But inside that house, things never felt quite right to me. I could never understand why my parents seemed to love Amber more than me. It wasn't anything obvious, they fed me, clothed me, sent me to good schools. But there was always this distance, this coldness that I couldn't figure out. Amber and I were never really close either. She seemed to pick up on our parents' attitude and treated me the same way, like I was there, but not really part of the family. Sometimes I'd catch her rolling her eyes when I talked about school or later about my business. I spent most of my childhood feeling like an outsider in my own home. I threw myself into my studies and later into coding because that was something that was just mine. My parents didn't understand it, Amber didn't care about it, so it became my escape. When I started making real money from my apps, I thought maybe finally they'd be proud of me, but instead it seemed to make the distance even worse. The thing I loved most, besides coding, was skiing. I'd been doing it since I was 8, and by high school, I was competing at the state level. Even with my business taking off, I still made time to hit the slopes every winter. My parents never came to watch me compete. They always had some excuse, work, Amber's soccer game, something around the house that needed fixing. But they never missed one of Amber's games, even when she was just sitting on the bench. I stopped expecting them to show up after a while, but it still hurt. So when I decided I needed a real vacation after launching our biggest app yet, Europe seemed like the perfect choice. I'd always wanted to ski the Alps, and I finally had the money and time to do it right. I booked this amazing resort in Switzerland, the kind of place where celebrities go to hide from the paparazzi. The first few days of the trip were incredible. The snow was perfect, the weather was clear, and I felt like I was in some kind of winter wonderland movie. I'd wake up early, hit the slopes before the crowds, and spend the whole day just losing myself in the rhythm of skiing. In the evenings, I'd sit by the fire in the lodge with a hot chocolate, feeling more relaxed than I had in years. On the 4th day, I decided to try one of the more challenging runs. It was marked as expert level, but I'd been skiing expert runs since I was 16. The mountain was beautiful that morning, with fresh powder from the night before and not another soul in sight. I remember thinking this was exactly what I needed, just me, the mountain, and the pure joy of skiing. I was about halfway down the run when I heard it. At first, it sounded like distant thunder, but then I realized what it was. An avalanche. And it was coming straight for me. Everything happened so fast after that. I tried to ski out of the way, but the snow was moving faster than I could. I remember the world going white, the sound of my own screaming, and then the sickening crack when I hit something hard. Later, I found out it was a tree. Then everything went black. The next thing I remember is floating in and out of consciousness over what felt like days. There were voices speaking in languages I didn't understand, bright lights, and pain. So much pain. Sometimes I thought I heard English, but it all seemed so far away, like I was underwater. When I finally really woke up, I was staring at a white ceiling in what was obviously a hospital room. My whole body ached, and my head felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. I tried to sit up, but waves of nausea hit me immediately. That's when I noticed her. A woman sitting in the chair next to my bed, holding my hand. She had brown hair like mine, but with some gray in it, and she was probably in her early 40s. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out. My throat felt like sandpaper. The woman's eyes filled with tears, and she squeezed my hand. "Oh honey, you're awake. Thank God you're awake." I stared at her, confused. "I'm sorry, do I know you? Where are my parents?" What happened to me? The woman, I still didn't know who she was, jumped up from her chair. Let me get the doctor, she said, and rushed out of the room. A few minutes later, she came back with a man in a white coat who introduced himself as Dr. Mueller. He had a thick German accent but spoke perfect English. Miss Thompson, how are you feeling? He asked, pulling up a chair next to my bed. Like I got hit by a truck, I said. What happened? Where are my parents? Dr. Mueller exchanged a look with the woman, and something cold settled in my stomach. Miss Thompson, you were caught in an avalanche 4 days ago. You've been unconscious since then. You have several broken ribs, a fractured leg, and you suffered a severe head injury. Okay, I said slowly, but where are my parents? And my sister? Someone must have called them. The woman sat back down and took my hand again. Dr. Mueller was quiet for a moment, and I could see him choosing his words carefully. Miss Thompson, I did call your parents. I called them the day you were brought in. And, I was getting scared now. Something was wrong, very wrong. Dr. Mueller sighed and leaned forward. Perhaps you should hear this from someone else, he said, nodding toward the woman. I looked at her again, and suddenly it clicked. I'd seen her face before, in photos on social media. She sent me birthday messages every year, but we'd never met in person. You're my aunt, I said, you're my mom's sister. The woman's face crumpled, and she started crying. Yes, sweetheart, but there's so much more you need to know. My aunt, I still couldn't remember her name, wiped her eyes and looked at Dr. Mueller. He nodded at her like he was giving her permission to continue. Betsy, honey, maybe I should start from the beginning, she said, pulling her chair closer to my bed. My name is Sarah, I'm not just your aunt, I'm your birth mother. The words hit me like another avalanche. I felt like I couldn't breathe. What? That's not possible. My parents would have told me if I was adopted. Dr. Mueller cleared his throat. Miss Thompson, perhaps I should explain what happened when I called your parents. It might help you understand the situation better. I nodded, though my head was spinning. Nothing was making sense. When you were brought in 4 days ago, you were critical, Dr. Mueller said. I called your emergency contacts immediately. Your father answered. I explained your condition, severe head trauma requiring surgery, but we had no neurosurgeon available. My heart was pounding. What did he say? He said, and I quote, "That's not our real daughter anyway." Then he hung up. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I called back several times. Finally, your mother answered. I explained again that without surgery you would likely die within a week. I asked if they could fly in or knew any neurosurgeons. And, I whispered. She said it was God's will. That if you were meant to survive, you would survive without their help. She said if you died, it was meant to happen. Then she told me not to call them again. I couldn't speak, the people who raised me had basically left me to die, saying I wasn't their real daughter. I don't understand, I finally managed. If they adopted me, why wouldn't they tell me? And why would they just abandon me now? Sarah reached over and took my hand again. Because they didn't really want you in the first place, sweetheart. They only took you because my mother, your grandmother, made them. I'm so confused, I said. Can you please just tell me what really happened? Sarah took a deep breath. I got pregnant with you at 16. I couldn't take care of a baby. Your grandmother arranged for her other daughter, your adoptive mother, to take you. She and her husband had been trying to have kids for years. So my mom is actually my aunt? Yes, your biological aunt, she's my older sister. I tried to process this, but they had Amber later. Sarah's voice got quiet. Once they had their own biological child, they didn't want you anymore. They tried to give you back, but my mother wouldn't let them do it. Suddenly, everything made sense. The coldness, the distance, the way they always treated Amber better. It wasn't because I had done something wrong. It was because I wasn't really their child, and they resented having to keep me. So my whole life has been a lie, I said. Not your whole life, Sarah said quickly. Your grandmother loves you, she always has. And I've loved you from a distance your whole life, even though I wasn't allowed to be part of it. Dr. Mueller spoke up again. When your parents refused to help, I called the number you had listed for your grandmother. She gave me Sarah's contact information. My grandmother called me immediately, Sarah said. She was crying when she told me what had happened. I got on the first flight I could find. But how did I get the surgery? Dr. Mueller said you didn't have a neurosurgeon here. I do, Sarah said with a small smile. My husband's brother is one of the best neurosurgeons in the country. As soon as I called him and explained what was happening, he canceled all his appointments and flew here with me. Your husband? Yes, I'm married, I have been for 12 years. We have 3 children together, your half-siblings. A son who's 15, and twin daughters who are 10. I stared at her. I have siblings? You do, and they all know about you now. They can't wait to meet you. But why didn't you contact me as an adult? They couldn't have stopped you then. Sarah looked down. I was scared. They convinced me you were happy, had a good life, and that showing up would disrupt that. I thought loving you from a distance was better than messing up your life. But you've been watching me? On social media? Every day. I was so proud when you graduated Stanford. When you started your company, I cried happy tears. You've become amazing, and I've missed all of it. Dr. Mueller stood up. I should let you two talk. Betsy, the surgery went well, but you'll need to stay here for at least another week while we monitor your recovery. You have a long road ahead of you. After he left, Sarah and I sat in silence for a few minutes. I had so many questions, so many emotions, I didn't know where to start. Sarah, I finally said, testing her name. That's going to take some getting used to. She laughed, but it was a sad sound. You can call me whatever feels right to you. I know this is a lot to take in. It is, but you know what? For the first time in my life, everything makes sense. I always felt like something was wrong, like I didn't belong. Now I know why. I'm so sorry you felt that way. If I had known how they were treating you, I would have fought to get you back. It's okay, I mean, it's not okay, but it's not your fault either. You were just a kid when you had me. We talked for another hour before I got tired. As Sarah prepared to leave, I asked one more question. Do my adoptive parents know you're here? No, and I won't tell them unless you want me to. I don't, not yet, I need time to process all this. Of course, I'll be here every day until you're ready to go home. After that, whatever you're comfortable with. After she left, I lay in the dark thinking. My whole life had been turned upside down, but somehow I felt lighter than I had in years. Finally, I understood why I had never felt like I belonged. The next week in the hospital went by in a blur. Sarah came every day, bringing me books, magazines, and stories about her family, my real family. She showed me pictures of my half-siblings, Marcus, who was 15 and apparently really into basketball, and the twins, Emma and Sophie, who were 10 and loved art just like I used to when I was their age. They're dying to meet you, Sarah said one afternoon, scrolling through photos on her phone. Marcus keeps asking when he can come visit. He's never had an older sister before. The idea of having siblings who actually wanted to know me was still hard to wrap my head around. I'd spent my whole life being the unwanted older sister to Amber, and now suddenly there were 3 kids who were excited about my existence. Dr. Mueller came by every day to check on my progress. The head injury was healing well, but I still had dizzy spells and headaches. My leg was in a cast, and my ribs were wrapped tight. He warned me that recovery would be slow and that I might have some long-term effects from the brain trauma. You're going to need physical therapy, he explained during one of his visits. And you should be prepared for the possibility that some symptoms might be permanent. Memory issues, balance problems, maybe some cognitive changes. We won't know for sure until you've had more time to heal. On my 7th day in the hospital, Sarah got a phone call that changed everything. I was dozing when I heard her phone ring, and I woke up to hear her talking in a hushed voice by the window. What, are you sure? She was saying. Yes, I understand. No, don't tell her anything yet. When she hung up, she looked pale. Who was that? I asked. Sarah sat down heavily in the chair next to my bed. That was your grandmother. She just got a call from your adoptive parents. My stomach dropped. What did they want? They wanted to know when your funeral was going to be. Your grandmother said they called her asking about arrangements, saying they wanted to know when to show up to pay their respects. So they think I'm dead, and they're planning to come to my funeral? It gets worse, Sarah said quietly. Your grandmother said they also asked her about your will and when they could start dealing with your estate. The room started spinning. They're already trying to get my money? Your grandmother didn't tell them the truth. She's worried about what they might do if they find out you're alive and recovering. She asked me what we should do. I thought about this for a minute. Part of me wanted to call them right now and tell them exactly what I thought of them. But another part of me was curious about what they would do if they really thought I was dead. What if we don't tell them? I said slowly. What if we let them think I'm dead? At least for now. I want to see what they do. Sarah looked concerned. Betsy, that could get complicated very quickly. I know, but think about it, this is my chance to see who they really are. If they show up to my funeral just to collect my inheritance, then I'll know for sure what kind of people they are. And then what? Then I decide what I want to do about it. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Your grandmother isn't going to like this plan. Can you call her? Ask her to go along with it, just for a little while? That evening, Sarah called my grandmother and put her on speaker so I could hear the conversation. Grandma, I said when Sarah handed me the phone. Oh my God, Betsy, I thought you were dead. My grandmother started crying immediately. When that doctor called and your parents said those horrible things, I was so scared I'd lost you. I'm okay, Grandma. Well, not okay exactly, but I'm alive. I can't believe they said you weren't their real daughter. I'm so sorry, honey. I should have told you the truth years ago. It's not your fault, but Grandma, I need you to do something for me. I explained my plan to her. She didn't like it at first, but eventually she agreed to go along with it. When are they expecting the funeral? I asked. They want it to be in 2 weeks. They said it should be a small, family affair. Perfect, that gives me time to get out of the hospital and get home. Dr. Mueller cleared me to fly home 5 days later. Sarah arranged for a private medical transport plane, which must have cost a fortune, but she insisted on paying for everything. You're my daughter, she said when I tried to protest. Let me take care of you. The flight home was exhausting. I was in a wheelchair, still dizzy and weak, but I was determined to see this through. Sarah flew with me and helped get me settled back in my house. My house felt different somehow. Maybe it was because I was different. Everything looked the same, but knowing what I knew now, it all felt hollow. This was the house I'd bought with money I'd earned from a business I'd built, trying to prove myself to people who had never wanted me in the first place. The first thing I did when I got home was call my lawyer, Jonathan. He'd been handling my business affairs while I was gone, and I needed to know what my adoptive parents had been up to. Betsy, thank God you're okay, he said when he heard my voice. I was so worried when I heard about the avalanche. Who told you about the avalanche? Your parents called me. They said you'd been killed and they wanted to know about your will and estate planning. I told them I couldn't discuss those details until I had official death certificates. What exactly did they ask about? They wanted to know how quickly they could take control of your assets. Your father specifically asked about your business and whether they could sell it immediately. They seemed very eager to get the process started. My heart sank, even though I'd expected this. Hearing it confirmed was devastating. Jonathan, I need you to do something for me. Don't tell them I'm alive, not yet. Betsy, what are you planning? I'm going to let them come to my funeral. I want to see what they do when they think they're about to inherit everything. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. I'll do whatever you need. But promise me you'll be careful. After I hung up with Jonathan, Sarah and I spent the evening planning. In 2 weeks, my adoptive parents and Amber would show up at my house expecting a funeral. Instead, they were going to get the surprise of their lives. "Are you really ready for this?" Sarah asked as we sat in my living room. "I've been ready for this my whole life. I just didn't know it until now." 2 weeks later, the day of my funeral arrived. Sarah helped me prepare everything. My grandmother came early, and we positioned ourselves where we could see but remain hidden. At 2 p.m., a black car pulled into my driveway. My adoptive parents stepped out, dressed in black. My mother wore a dramatic black hat with a veil, like a grieving widow. My father had his best black suit. Amber got out wearing all black too, with a piece of paper in her hand. She'd written a speech. "I'm recording everything," I whispered to Sarah, "I want evidence." They walked to my door looking somber, but I could see excitement in their eyes. They thought they were about to become wealthy. My grandmother opened the door. "Hello, thank you for coming." "Where is everyone else?" my mother asked. "I thought there would be more people." "Betsy didn't have many close friends," my grandmother said. "Always focused on work." They followed her to my living room, where Sarah waited. The moment my mother saw Sarah, her face changed. "What is she doing here?" my mother screamed. "She has no right, she's not family." "Actually, I have every right," Sarah said calmly. "I'm Betsy's mother." "You gave up that right when you abandoned her," my father shouted. "We raised her, everything belongs to us." "Where's the body?" Amber asked. "Shouldn't there be a casket?" "The body was badly damaged," my grandmother said. "We decided on cremation." "Fine," my mother said impatiently. "When can we deal with her estate?" "We've talked to lawyers about the business." "You talked to lawyers?" Sarah asked. "Of course," my father said, "we need to sell that company quickly." "Do you know how much money we're talking about?" "Millions." Amber walked around my living room like she was taking inventory. "I want this house, I've always loved this place." "We'll sell everything," my mother said firmly. "The house, the business, all of it." "Actually, legally it goes to us as parents," my father corrected. "Amber gets her share when we die." "That's not fair," Amber protested. "I'm her sister." They started arguing about dividing my money. My mother wanted my jewelry, my father my stock portfolio, Amber my car. "Has anyone read her will?" Sarah asked quietly. "We don't need to," my mother said dismissively. "Everything automatically goes to us." "That's not how wills work," Sarah said. "Don't lecture us," my father snapped. "You gave her away, you have no claim." That's when I'd heard enough. I rolled my wheelchair out from behind the kitchen door. "Actually, nobody has a claim to anything, because I'm not dead." The silence was deafening. All three stared at me like they'd seen a ghost. Amber reacted first. "This is some sick joke. You can't be alive." I wrote a whole speech. "Let me guess, about how you hope to get my house." My mother went pale. "This isn't possible." "The doctor said you'd die." "The doctor said I'd die without surgery," I corrected. "Which I got, thanks to my real mother." My father's face turned red. "This is fraud, we'll sue you." "Sue me for what?" "I never said I was dead. You assumed that when you told the hospital not to call." "We have rights," my mother shouted. "You're our daughter." "No, you took me because my grandmother forced you. The moment you had your own child, you wanted to get rid of me. I have the recording where you said I wasn't your real daughter." They went quiet. "I have proof of what you said when you thought I was dying. How you refused to help pay for surgery. How you said if I died, it was God's will." "You don't understand," my mother started. "I understand perfectly. You've spent 2 weeks calling lawyers to get my money. You came here not to mourn, but to celebrate your inheritance." "We missed you," Amber said weakly. "Really? Then why write a speech about getting my house instead of the sister you lost?" "We're still family," my father tried. "No, we're not, my family is right here." I gestured to Sarah and my grandmother. These people actually love me. You can't cut us out, my mother cried. Actually, I can. I've had my lawyer draw up new documents. You're not in my will anymore. We'll fight this, my father shouted. Go ahead, but if you harass me, I'll release the recording. Everyone will know what kind of people you are. They stood there realizing they weren't getting what they came for. Finally, my mother turned to leave. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is, I replied. After they left, I sat with Sarah and my grandmother, feeling lighter than I had in years. Are you okay? Sarah asked. I'm perfect. For the first time, I'm exactly where I belong. A week later, I got a text from my adoptive parents asking for forgiveness, saying they missed me. I deleted it without responding. My real family visited a month later. Meeting my half-siblings was amazing. My new stepfather welcomed me with open arms, and I finally felt like I belonged. I'm still recovering from my injuries, and doctors say I'll always need a cane. But I have money for the best rehabilitation, and more importantly, people who genuinely care about me. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is discovering the life you thought you were supposed to live was never really yours to begin with.